So there is something non-hockey related that I wanted to talk about, and I didn't want to do this on the hockey set, so I'm going to talk about it here, and I'm going to talk about it frankly. The Houston Astros. This has been driving me nuts, and it reminds me why. Okay, so you've got a horrible commissioner who clearly doesn't want to have anything to do with actually punishing the Houston Astros for what they did, and it just looks bad. It looks so bad for everything related to baseball, and this is why. I, as somebody who used to watch baseball just as much as hockey, I used to watch every baseball game I could. Eventually, I went, and it was right around the steroid problem that baseball had in the '90s. But that was different. That was individual players deciding if I take these supplements, I'll make more money because I'll hit more home runs. They weren't wrong. The more home runs you hit, the more interest there is in the game, which is why recently they've been juicing the ball. There's no way the ball's not juiced. There's no way. I see some of these hits where I'm like, it's a home run. Oh, okay, that was a home run. And it's pretty obvious that there's a little more kick in the ball there, which is probably something that Major League Baseball looked at and said, hey, more home runs equals more ratings, which is fine. I, being a fan of pitching, not so much a fan of the ball juicing part of it, because I think it has to be tough for pitchers when they throw a good pitch and a ball that should have been a fly out to center field, left field, or right field becomes a home run, where it's like, you know what, that probably should have been an out, but it's a home run because the ball is how it is this year. It's got to be tough. So for Major League Baseball, there has always been an image problem. Here's the thing that's funny to me too is when people say, "Well, we have traditions in the game. We can't ruin those." Which traditions? The steroids from the late '80s, early '90s, or the dropping ratings, or the dropping interest in the game in general? They're already talking about a whole generation of fans tuning out baseball. So baseball's trying to make itself more relevant, more entertaining, which is why there's discussion. Look over here of changing the way they do the playoffs to make it like 14 teams that make it into the playoffs. I miss when it was four teams. I'm going to be completely honest. I miss when you won your division, you got in the playoffs, you didn't win your division, you weren't in the playoffs. I miss that. And it does sometimes feel to me like when I see a wild card do really well, I'm thinking, well, that's fine, but it doesn't feel like regular baseball. So when traditionalists come out and say, well, you can't change all these things because, tradition. Yeah, tradition disappeared the day that they expanded the playoff format. That's where the tradition died. I think you could have a before expansion and an after expansion of the playoffs, and it's quite a different picture that you get with baseball. The Houston Astros and what they did, Stein stealing, it goes to the very heart of sports. The idea that there's some honor to it. You can see a guy at second base kind of stealing signs and trying to relay that information to the plate. That happens regularly, kind of regularly. And if you get caught doing it, you're probably going to get beamed with a ball the next time you're up at the plate. But this idea that there was a systematic stealing of signs going on by the Houston Astros, it takes the very heart of sport and it sort of rips it out of your chest and it throws it on the ground and goes, hey. And then the funny thing is, then you get the owner of the Houston Astros coming out and going, oh, I don't know that it gave us an advantage. That's why you stopped doing it, right? Oh, no, you stopped because you got caught. I don't know that that's why we won a World Series. You sure about that? Major League Baseball, by giving them just a little tap on the wrist and just don't you do it again, will suspend managers, but not any of the players. The players have immunity going forward, which has led to players like Mike Trout and others coming out and saying, hey, so all the awards they won, they're BS. They don't count because they cheated to win them. And they're right. Every home run, every hit, everything that these guys did, it's null. It's nothing. It's done. And I don't know that baseball can come back from this. Like this to me is the kind of black eye that will linger around this sport for a while. I mean that. I think that for baseball, a sport that already had its share of black eyes, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, for instance, Barry Bonds, and now it has this. You have a whole, 10 years worth of baseball players that would totally be in the Hall of Fame, but we don't know. Were they clean? Were they not clean? Oh, we know they weren't clean. Or maybe they were clean. So you end up with guys who don't hit home runs being the ones you put in the Hall of Fame because you're pretty sure they weren't taking anything a little extra to get that advantage. And now we're going to have this conversation years down the road. Members of the Houston Astros team, when they retire, does that affect their ability to get in the Hall of Fame because they cheated? The only way for baseball to have done this properly, in my eyes, and this is again just for me, is take the World Series title away. They've admitted we were sign stealing during 2017. There's video footage. It gets them. Gets them. Then you take away that World Series. You take away their rings. You say sorry. And for the players on that team who weren't cheating, sorry, but there was enough systematic cheating going on the Houston Astros that we can't recognize this. And for whatever titles get won, sorry, no, those awards are going to have an asterisk next to them for all of history. And for fans, they will. And if Major League Baseball isn't going to step in and say, yeah, we got this one wrong, if Rob Manfred is going to continue to basically wave his hand off in one direction and say, hey, don't talk about the Astros, let's talk about expanding the playoffs. I know, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about anything else but this. Clearly, Major League Baseball and its image problem goes pretty deep. So again, when you talk about baseball purity and the traditions of the game, those disappeared a while ago. Or maybe, just maybe, the Houston Astros are the ultimate throwback to the Chicago Black Sox. Remember the White Sox team that got paid off? Yep, and then that became Field of Dreams, and then we had all these warm, fuzzy feelings about these guys who absolutely deserved to be ridiculed, and yet, I don't know. You know, this is something that I'm curious to see what happens from here. I'm actually kind of curious about how teams play against Houston, how fans will receive Houston. And I still see people saying, well, they're going to be a pretty good team this year. Are they? How many of these games are players going to come into on the road where they're absolutely reviled by the fans, where just it is absolutely endless and relentless, and it gets to the point where you can't concentrate on the game. It gets to the point where you just can't. Maybe you're at first base, and at first base, third base, second base, you often talk to the guy who's on base. What's to say that the guy at first base doesn't get talked to by the player? Like, well, that was legit. How did that feel? And I'm just using that as just a really off-the-cuff kind of thing. I think there are players who are making some plans on how they're going to counteract the Houston Astros, and I think this is a franchise that's going to be going through this for a while. I feel bad for anybody with the Astros who wasn't a part of this because it's going to hit them. And I do give some props, maybe a tip of the cap, to players who've actually come out and admitted it and taken ownership of it. And for the others who've gone, really? If anybody's going to claim complete and total ignorance of what was going on, even the owner, come on. So I don't think this is over. I think baseball wants it to be over. I don't think it's going to be. I'm talking about it here because it has been so prominent in the news up here, and it's something I wanted to talk about so badly that I'm standing here on the other set that I've yet to get a whole setup in here with. But to discuss what's going to happen in the world of baseball. Again, unless you suspend players who we know were in on this, who were part of this, unless we actually take away rings from guys who won them illegitimately, it kind of makes baseball a joke. It really kind of does. I guess as a San Diego Padres fan, I can say, oh, that's why they didn't win the World Series, because it's always been rigged against them. It doesn't. That doesn't ring true at all. But hey, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. And to Houston Astros fans out there, I genuinely feel bad for the fans of the Astros because it's not like fans, I don't think, were aware of this. I remember being happy for the Astros when they won it. And honestly, I was borderline Astros fan at time during the 80s because of those really fantastically ugly white jerseys with like the red and yellow stripes around the middle. So ugly, but Nolan Ryan was such a darn good pitcher. So was Sutton. Sutton was a damn good pitcher as well. So with the two of them and the fact that I love pitching, my fandom usually followed where the best pitching was, and it was Houston in the, I want to say, mid 80s. But thank you guys so much for everything. I will talk to you again soon.